Do you remember when parties were simpler, when the lights were soft, the jackets were shiny, and every song came from a vinyl record? Back then, a drink wasn't just something to sip. It told a story. Each glass had its own charm, its own place in time. Tonight, we're taking a little trip back to the golden age of American nightlife, to revisit the cocktails that once ruled every bar, but have now quietly faded into memory. These are 10 old-school alcoholic drinks you won't see at parties anymore. So grab a seat, pour yourself something classic, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Let's keep the good old days alive together. Purple Passion. They called it Purple Passion, a drink that looked like summer in a bottle and tasted like youth itself. Back in the late 70s and through the neon-soaked 80s, this was the drink that lit up college parties across America. It started as a homemade mix, Everclear grain alcohol blended with fruit juice and wine. A dangerous kind of sweet, the kind you only learn to respect the morning after. By 1986, it hit the shelves for real. Bright purple cans stacked in every corner store, selling 1 million cases in no time. It wasn't just a drink. It was a moment, a little rebellion wrapped in sugar and fizz, passed from hand to hand while "Don't Stop Believin'" played somewhere in the background. And like most good things from that time, it eventually disappeared, fading into memory, leaving behind nothing but that color, that taste, and the feeling of being young, fearless, and alive. Bacardi 151. There was a time when a bottle of Bacardi 151 meant the party was about to get serious. Introduced decades ago, this high-proof rum, a staggering 75% alcohol, was pure fire, both in spirit and in reality. Bartenders used it to light up tiki drinks, flaming shots, and wild stunts that seemed straight out of a movie. You could feel the heat before you even took a sip. It wasn't the kind of drink for quiet nights. It was made for celebration, for laughter that spilled into the early hours, for those who wanted to live just a little louder. But as the years passed, the danger began to outweigh the thrill. A few too many accidents, a few too many burns, and Bacardi finally pulled it off the shelves in 2016. Still, for those who remember, Bacardi 151 was more than a rum. It was a spark, a symbol of a wilder, braver time when the night burned bright. And so did we. 4 Loko. If you were around in the mid-2000s, you probably remember 4 Loko, the drink that defined a generation of wild nights and questionable decisions. It was neon-colored, loud, and a little dangerous, a mix of caffeine, taurine, guarana, and more alcohol than anyone realized at first sip. On college campuses across America, it wasn't just a drink, it was a rite of passage. You'd crack open a tall can, laugh with friends, and feel invincible until it hit. Hard. By the time universities started banning it, and states like New York and Kansas pulled it off the shelves, 4 Loko had already become legend. The blackout in a can, as people joked. When it came back without caffeine, it wasn't quite the same. The spark was gone. But for those who lived through it, 4 Loko will always be more than just a drink. It was a flash of chaos, youth, and the wild energy of nights we can never quite repeat. Malt Duck. There was something strangely charming about Malt Duck. It wasn't quite beer, and it wasn't quite wine. It lived somewhere in between, a sweet little experiment that captured the carefree spirit of the late 60s and 70s. You'd twist open a tall glass bottle, and the scent of Concord grapes would fill the room, sugary, playful, and just a little mischievous. The first sip was all fruit, but then that gentle beer bite would roll in, reminding you this wasn't just juice. It was the drink you'd bring to a backyard party, something that made everyone smile, light enough for conversation, bold enough for fun. For a while, it felt like Malt Duck could last forever. But as tastes changed, and the world chased bolder, stronger flavors, it quietly faded from the shelves. Just another memory of easier days and simpler nights. And if you ever had one, you can still remember that sweet, purple sparkle, a small taste of the past that never really left. Zima. Do you remember the 90s obsession with clear everything? Clear soda, clear shampoo, even clear deodorant. And right there in the middle of it all was Zima. Introduced by Coors in 1993, Zima was like a crystal bottle of the future. It looked like Sprite, tasted like a light vodka soda, and promised something cleaner, smoother, more modern than beer. It was cool, refreshing, and somehow felt different. For a moment, Zima was everywhere. The drink of choice for people who wanted to sip something that looked as sharp as the decade itself. It wasn't just a beverage. It was a statement. A symbol of the era when America believed everything clear meant everything pure. Bars glowed with its icy shimmer. Commercials promised something different. But like most trends, the sparkle faded fast. By the late 90s, Zima became more of a punchline than a party drink. Still, for those who remember it, that first chilled bottle of Zima tastes like youth, neon lights, and a time when even our drinks were trying to reinvent the future. Bud Dry. There was a time in the late 80s when America was obsessed with being dry. Not the weather, but the beer. Inspired by Japan's Asahi Dry craze, Bud Dry arrived in 1989, a bold experiment from Anheuser-Busch that promised a cleaner, crisper kind of buzz. It had the calories of a Bud Light, the strength of a regular Budweiser, and that sharp, wine-like dryness that made it feel sophisticated, almost European. Its commercials were everywhere. That catchy line, "Why ask why? Try Bud Dry." It was the beer of backyard barbecues, college nights, and neon-lit bars that smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and vinyl booths. For a brief moment, Bud Dry felt like the future, modern, confident, uncomplicated. But tastes changed, trends faded, and by 2010, Bud Dry quietly disappeared from store shelves. Still, for those who remember cracking one open, that first sip takes you right back to a simpler time when even a beer could feel like a new beginning. Aftershock. If you grew up in the late 90s, you probably remember Aftershock, that fiery red bottle sitting on someone's kitchen counter at every college party. It wasn't your usual whiskey or beer. It was loud, sweet, and unapologetically bold. With its cinnamon flavor that burned and chilled at the same time, it felt less like a drink and more like an experience, one that dared you to take another shot just to feel that strange, tingling heat again. Launched by Jim Beam in 1997, Aftershock was part drink, part dare. The neon red glow of the liquid under the party lights, the laughter after the first fiery sip. It was chaos and youth bottled up. Later came the blue and green versions, each promising its own wild twist. But as the years passed, tastes grew quieter, and the bottles slowly vanished from shelves by 2009. Still, for those who remember that cinnamon burn and the sound of music pulsing through crowded basements, Aftershock will always be the taste of a reckless, unforgettable night. California Coolers. If you grew up in the 80s, chances are you remember the California Cooler, that sun-soaked bottle that seemed to capture the spirit of endless summer. Sweet, fruity, and easy to drink, it was the perfect companion for beach days, backyard barbecues, and those long drives with the windows down and music playing loud. Born from a simple mix of white wine and fruit juice, it was Michael Creet's homemade party drink turned national sensation, a bottled taste of the California dream. Advertisements showed tanned friends laughing by the waves, and for a while, it felt like every cooler at every party had at least one bottle chilling inside. But like most fads, the magic faded. By the early 90s, the wine cooler craze gave way to a new generation of drinks and a more refined taste for real wines. Still, for anyone who remembers those carefree afternoons under the golden sun, California Cooler wasn't just a beverage, it was a feeling, bottled and sparkling with youth. Ripple. Back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a drink that perfectly captured the carefree spirit of youth. Ripple. It wasn't fancy or pretentious. It was sweet, fizzy, and cheap enough for anyone to enjoy. To the young crowd, Ripple felt like rebellion in a bottle, something their parents wouldn't touch, but their friends couldn't get enough of. Made by E&J Gallo, it was basically a sparkling, fruity wine, more sangria than sophistication, and it became a symbol of freedom, laughter, and late-night conversations that stretched till dawn. Musicians sang about it, sitcoms joked about it, and for a while, it was everywhere, from corner stores to gas station vending machines. But by the mid-'80s, as wine culture grew more refined, Ripple quietly disappeared from the shelves. Still, for anyone who ever shared a bottle under the warm glow of streetlights, it remains more than just a drink. It's a memory of simpler times and a taste of youth that never quite fades. Hoppin' Gator. Now here's one that sounds almost too wild to be real. Hoppin' Gator. A mix of beer and Gatorade, dreamed up in the late 60s when America loved experimenting with anything new and fun. It was lemon lime, a little fruity, a little fizzy, and packed a surprising punch, about 25% stronger than your average beer back then. Made by the same minds behind Gatorade, Hoppin' Gator promised to hydrate while you drink, which sounded like a miracle to partygoers of the time. For a brief, colorful moment, it was the drink for the curious, college students, late-night crowds, anyone chasing something different. But as you might guess, the novelty wore off. By 1975, it disappeared from shelves, leaving behind little more than a few yellowed ads and the memory of one of the strangest, yet most fascinating, party drinks ever made. A lemon-lime dream that burned bright and fizzled fast, just like so many things we loved in the 70s. Maybe those bottles are long gone, but their stories still linger, in the laughter, the music, and the soft glow of a Friday night that never really ended. Because it wasn't just the drink, it was the moment, the people, the feeling. If you felt a spark of that old warmth tonight, don't forget to subscribe and join us as we pour another round of memories, one story at a time.